Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. Very happy to have alongside today Dominic Cloud, the veteran St. Albans City Manager. Dominic, good to see you. Thanks for the time.
You're welcome.
While I think of it, I was in People's Trust last week, talked to President Tom Gallagher and mentioned city stuff, had good words for yourself in the city, but I guess your tenures are pretty close. I think he started as president about the
same time.
About the same time, he said.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about 15 years?
15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we certainly appreciate our relationship with the bank.
Yeah, sounds like those are good folks.
Yeah.
Boy, Dominic, 15 years. Again, you were working at Vermont League of Cities and Towns and got the job in St. Albans. I can only assume at that point you probably weren't thinking you'd be hanging around here for 15 years. What was the contract, like a couple, 3 years, first contract, or even if that, or more?
I honestly don't remember. I think it was, it was probably a 3-year.
Probably a 3-year.
I always, for a while, I used to say, well, one more project, one more.
Yeah.
And then eventually you just realize, that there's always something more to do. And, it's been a great fit. It's been a great ride. We're not done yet.
Yeah.
We got some big opportunities coming up. So
I can only assume. I'm sure other jobs have come up during that tenure, but none enough to grab you away from here, I guess. Huh?
It's a great fit. It's all about the fit between the board and the manager, and the board and the community, and the St. Albans redevelopment story. It's a great sort of all-American success story, and we're really unique compared to other towns. We pass our votes out of the city council unanimously.
Really? Is that typically unanimously?
Typically, yeah. On the big votes, we work really hard at consensus, and we work really hard at being aligned with where the community is headed.
Yeah.
And that's what allows you to succeed, and that's what keeps me here.
Yeah.
It's always possible a new board would want to go a different direction, and they'd want somebody different, and that'd be a different conversation.
Yeah. I'm a longtime St. Albans City resident of about 40 years or so at this point, and it seemed like you kind of touched on it, but I know with the downtown revitalization, I think there were a bunch of other communities looking to see what St. Albans was doing, going back maybe a couple of years, but public safety certainly became a big concern here as it has elsewhere. I even went to a meeting. I don't do many meetings these days in my old age, but went to the one that attracted, about 300 people, I guess, a couple of years ago.
It was just about a year ago, actually.
I'm a year off to about a year ago.
Yeah.
But it sounded like, issues. St. Albans was getting just really good words, and it sounds like it was taking a little bit of a hit, and you might not see it that way, but I think it's come back from that a bit. Is the public safety issue, is that in better shape now than it was then?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to measure how you're doing. And when it comes to public safety, I think a qualitative measure is best. And a lot of it is how people feel when they're walking around downtown and what people say when you bump into them at the local bank. And what I hear is people feel like it's a lot better this year than it was last year. I'm hoping it'll be better a year from now, even more so.
So what is City PD? Is that are you pretty close to fully staffed at this point?
Yeah, a year ago we said give us a year to bend the curve. Yeah. And there's more bending to do, but we're seeing progress. And so some of the investments we made are we stood up the street crimes unit, which does proactive undercover drug work. Yeah. And I can't say enough good things about it. We every day of the week, our undercover officers are out there doing nitty-gritty on-the-ground work, building cases, getting buys in, working with the state's attorney to get warrants, and knocking down drug houses. And so it's the drugs that drive it all. It's all about the drugs. Yeah. And so, people complain in a different context, well, we've got too many seagulls or too many pigeons, then you ask yourself, well, who's feeding the seagulls, right? It's the drug dealers. And so we went hard after the drug dealers with the street crimes unit, and we also went hard after the landlords that rent to them.
Yeah,
And
Mayor Smith has mentioned that to me a number of times.
yeah, that's been a big
Yeah.
help. You
Yeah.
know, there's a handful of landlords who rent to all the drug dealers, and we changed our relationship with them by saying, look, you guys are part of the problem, you got to be part of the solution.
Yeah,
And then the third piece of it is the investments we made in the police department.
Yeah.
We haven't added officers. We've just been committed to remaining competitive with other communities in the state.
and that
And
was certainly a part of the budget. I mean, the budget kicked up in large part, I think, because paying the officers more.
and 100%
Keep that
part,
competitive.
and all part, you know,
Yeah,
so,
totally.
yeah, and
And you're pretty,
Yeah.
so you don't tend to lose too many officers to like other departments at this point?
yeah, I mean, knock on wood, we have a pretty high retention rate.
Yeah,
When folks, it's a rather large, complex, high-pressure organization, so you're always going to have folks going out the back door,
yeah,
and you need to always be replenishing from the front door.
yeah,
But we're a stable department that pays competitive wages, that offers a lot of professional opportunity. People like, officers like that.
Yeah.
And so we're able to recruit at a time when departments across the state were sinking and flailing and not able to fill their authorized positions. We were expanding.
And picking up against St. Albans Town, which you're talking about, that helped to force you to have a bigger department, and that just kind of makes things work better?
Yeah, I mean, it's economies of scale. You know, you can't, the way to drive down costs is through economies of scale. And it allows us to be big enough to offer opportunity and spread our costs out enough that they're spread out amongst a wide enough base to make the investments that we need to make to be competitive.
Yeah.
So, but, a lot of people are getting a lot of calls right now about the tax bills, and people are saying, well, where's all that money going? What's driving the costs?
Yeah,
Every other department had cut their spending
Really?
and was down.
wow,
We knew that there was going to be pressure on property taxes because of the reappraisal.
yeah,
And so every other department came into it reducing their expenditures and making room for what the voters said was their highest priority in that meeting a year ago,
yeah,
which was support the cops.
wow,
So,
and that happened. Talking about 20-plus uniformed officers?
yeah, thereabouts. I mean, it depends on how you
Somewhere in
measure,
there.
right? Yeah. So it depends on if the command staff are in, but 20-odd.
Yeah, and covering the town, that seems to be working out. Sounds like the town folks seem to be pretty comfortable with what's going on, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship between the city and town has never been better.
Yeah.
We how many shows did we talk about water and sewer? And that's
In retrospect, I mean, is that an issue, right? I mean, I've talked about that for decades around here.
Yeah.
Is that an issue that somehow should have been dealt with a lot earlier? I mean, it's so good that it was. It was accurately billed as a historic agreement, nothing less than that. But boy,
Yeah.
it sure took a long time to get there.
Yeah, deals come together when it's time, right? And when the pressure points and the incentives are finally ready to be made.
Yeah.
And you can't rush that. And,
I guess it wasn't rushed.
certainly wasn't
But
rushed.
it finally got done anyway.
And, there were a couple opportunities along the way to make a different deal. I
Yeah.
think the one that we ended up with
Yeah,
is transformational for both communities. It's a better deal than
Yeah.
anything.
yeah.
So it was worth waiting for.
Yeah, so good relations with the town. Any other major things like that you could pull off, or?
I think there's always opportunities for the city and town to continue working together. I think from here on, they're probably smaller incremental shifts.
Yeah.
The police department one was pretty seismic.
Yeah.
There isn't anything else that's on the radar screen that I'm aware of right
Yeah.
now. It's more just relationship maintenance at this
Right.
point.
Of course, the town just losing its town manager, Sean Adkins,
Yeah.
heading down to Rutland. Someone asked me, hey, ask Dominic. I bet he's going to get calls from Sean, who's going to be dealing with TIF, I guess, tax increment financing. I guess
Yeah.
Rutland's looking at that pretty seriously.
Yeah. So.
You fared well with Sean, good relationship
Oh,
with
yeah,
Sean?
absolutely. Yeah, Sean will be missed. He was a good fit.
Yeah.
And he's a good pickup for the Rutland Redevelopment Authority. We
Well,
talked with the mayor down there.
sounds like a very good job for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess Corey Parentson now is what the temporary town manager is. I guess you're looking for a permanent town manager.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know Corey pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, we're, in conversations about some opportunities in the city based on the new housing program that was just passed by the legislature, so.
Right, which we'll talk, the CHIPS program.
CHIP program, yeah.
Right. So let's go to reappraisal again. I'm a longtime city resident. Yeah, I got a pretty good hit, probably a little more than I thought.
Yeah.
And I think you tell me, I think I have a pretty average house in the city. I was tax appraised at about $175,000.
Yeah.
And got a little more than doubled on that. So.
Yeah.
And of course, I always hear, hey, your appraisal may double, but your taxes won't double. And they didn't, but it was a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
It just begs my question, was the residential folks took the main hit on the reappraisal?
Yeah.
A lot more than I assume commercial?
Way more.
And that's not surprising. It seems
That
like
shift.
That often happens, or not necessarily. It depends what's going on, I guess.
Yeah, there's a number of different inputs here, and the whole thing is like a exercise in a statistics class, but a lot of us were focused on the percent change, right, and the increase.
Yeah.
And everything went up.
Yeah.
And all the tax rates went down. The city tax rate went from a little over $1 per 100 of assessed value to 70 cents.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a 70-cent tax rate since like 2010.
Is that right? 70 cents?
Yeah, 70 cents, so a 30% reduction in our rate. On the education side, when you look at where we were before with the application of the common level of appraisal and where we are now, there's about a 50% decrease in the education tax rate. So all of that should suggest my taxes shouldn't be up. But the bigger driver is the shift from non-residential to residential that has happened not just in St. Albans, but nationally. And so if you picture a pie, the residential portion of the pie of the tax burden is up by about 25%. So the tax levy is a lot more on the residential side than on the commercial side. And so that analysis of who bears the burden is really not so much about shifts in value or increases. It's about who's got a bigger slice of the pie. How much did I increase relative to you? The hardest hit properties were ones who hadn't been reassessed or in any way for 30 years. Nothing has changed in 30,
Had there not been a reappraisal for that long a time, or not a full reappraisal, or? There
had been a reappraisal, but you always try to standardize your properties to a certain year in the construction tables. But there's a tendency, and it's just human nature, the new stuff tends, and everything that's been renovated just tends to trend higher, it's less depreciated, and there's a whole bunch of quantitative analytics that play into it. But on a qualitative thing, a brand new house just tends to be valued closer to market than something that hasn't been touched. And we have a lot of things that hadn't been touched, and a lot of properties where the rents were low because they were good, long-serving tenants. But the properties were valued not based on what that tenant is paying, but what that landlord could be charging for a two-bedroom apartment. And so the market drove it all. What I hear a lot is people saying things like, I don't dispute the value. I just dispute the taxes.
I'm sure you hear that.
And I can't do anything about that.
Most people presumably happier with a higher value, as I was, obviously.
Higher value, it's a measure of wealth. It doesn't always mean that there's more money to pay the taxes. And this is a story that's as old as time, particularly in Vermont. I'm hearing a lot of people say things like, I'm being pushed out, I can't afford the taxes, my house is worth twice as much, but my Social Security's not, and my
Sure.
retirement's not.
Yeah.
And all that's true.
Yeah. I wake up to WVMT folks every morning.
Yeah.
And I can just about count on a couple calls. It's a pretty
Saying that
conservative listenership, but hey, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Give me another year, and I'm, Tennessee, North Carolina,
Low
South
tax
Carolina
states,
bound.
yeah. You know what strikes me as I listen to the news, Vermont is finally being forced, I think, to reconcile its relationship with growth.
Yeah.
And there's a real subtle implicit bias within Vermont that's anti-growth.
Yeah.
And
you felt that. You've seen that from day one.
From day one,
and that
yeah.
really has that really not changed much?
It's different in Franklin County, and it's
Yeah.
different in St. Albans City.
Yeah.
There isn't a community that's more pro-growth than the city of St. Albans.
Yeah.
I was driving home the other day, and I listened to VPR, and I heard
Yeah.
one story. Our hospitals are all on shaky ground. We're not going to have babies here. The hospital system is teetering because our population's not growing,
Yeah.
and care is high, and we have an old, ungrowing population. That's the first
Yeah.
news story, right?
Yeah.
Second news story is schools. And it's the same story.
Yeah.
Variations on a theme, right? Flat growth,
Yeah.
no students, operating costs through the roof.
Yeah.
And the third story is Essex votes down Amazon, and so.
You probably weren't surprised at that.
I wasn't surprised, but like a lot of communities, we work really hard and say,
Yeah.
people in Franklin County would have bent over backwards to have that.
And I guess the folks in Georgia are expressing a little interest possibly in
Yeah.
the Perigo plant.
Yeah, there's all kinds of places where a large facility, but we can't have it all.
Yeah.
We can't have a reasonable tax burden and make the investments that we want to make
Yeah.
in the social infrastructure of Vermont
Yeah.
and not have growth.
Yeah.
I would go down to the legislature this past session and talk about the CHIP program and, pitch it as, CHIP and tax increment financing and all of our economic development programs.
Yeah.
This is how we save our small towns. This is how we save our small schools.
Yeah.
This is how we save our small hospitals. We have to grow. And these programs allow us to grow in the ways that Vermonters have always wanted us to grow.
Yeah.
In designated downtowns and smart growth principles and all the rest.
So the legislature was at least obviously a bit more receptive this time around?
The legislature as a whole absolutely was,
Yeah.
but specific committees, House Ways and Means,
Really?
absolutely not.
Is that right?
And within Vermont, there's just a real strong sense that developers don't need assistance, and that, we can, with the statewide property tax, we don't need to grow in XYZ small town.
Yeah.
We can just grow in our large communities near the interstates. And
Tell that
and it's all
to the good folks in
like-
the Northeast Kingdom and a lot of other places.
100%, yeah. In Vermont, it matters where you grow and how you grow.
Yeah.
But we need to grow.
And the state, and again, pretty stable, about 650,000 people in Vermont? That number's,
Yeah.
I guess it's somehow gone up a bit, but not much.
Not in a meaningful way,
And that's pretty much courtesy of northwestern Vermont.
Northwestern Vermont, is carrying the rest of the state, and maybe that's pretty hard-coded at this point, but even northwestern Vermont,
Yeah.
I'm in the business of making real estate deals happen in St. Albans City.
Yeah.
And, it's what I do all day, every day. And they're skinny deals. They're tight. They're really, without the city's participation in the public-private partnerships,
Yeah.
they just would not happen.
All right.
And, St. Albans City has we've blown the doors off our tax increment finance district. We've exceeded all expectations. And we're gonna, by the time it's all said and done, we're gonna have added $100 million to the tax base, the statewide tax base. Well, what's $100 million? Well, a Walmart's probably 10.
Huh.
A hotel's probably 10.
Yeah.
A 30-unit residential building is probably 6, right? So so the city of St. Albans, who, you remember the condition we were in when we first started, that's like saying we've added 4 Walmarts, 4 hotels, that's 8 million, and then some residential buildings. Who would have thought that we could do that?
Yeah.
And every town in the state could do that.
Yeah. So TIF for St. Albans City, is that over now, or have you got more TIF projects at this point, or is that pretty much done?
It's almost done.
Yeah.
We're in the 9th inning, and we're on second base, right, for our last run here. The last project is the Bellevue project downtown.
That sounded like a real tough project. Tell you about it, but are you making some progress on that?
Yeah, we are.
And again, housing, we're talking significant housing is the hope here, the plan?
I think it'll be scaled back. We were originally talking 80 units. There was the potential for 80. I think we'll probably do, a little more than half of that, 40 or 50.
And this is Bellevue building or an additional space besides that too?
Yeah, the Bellevue building will come down.
Okay.
And we'll do a new building there. We've got some designs that we're looking at. I think the community will really like them. They echo the architecture of the old Bellevue building, but it's a new modern building on the site. And they'll go all the way back, and maybe it'll L out a little bit in either direction. So we're hoping to have that deal finalized over the winter and break ground next summer on it.
You still looking for a developer? Have you got a developer pretty much nailed down for that, or not?
I've got 2 in mind.
Yeah.
We're dating and texting. We haven't made it to the altar.
Yeah.
So.
But that's looking. Yeah, when I've been hearing about that, I hadn't heard much about that project, but some progress with that.
Yeah.
But tough, not an easy project. Huh?
It's not easy, but that deal will happen.
Yeah.
We need a lot of our sort of attention span has been focused on the Fonda project, and that helps as well. Once that's under construction, commercial lenders are very conservative. They like to look in the rearview mirror, not out the windshield. And so when there's, another 90 units or so going up at Fonda, that helps demonstrate the market demand for another 50.
And that's what you're talking there, in about 90 units?
It's like 87,
Somewhere,
I think. The whole thing
there.
is about 130.
Wow.
With this counting the senior housing that's there.
And it looks like Reed is that just about ready to go? It looks great.
Yeah, I was talking to people over the weekend who are moving in, and
is that right? So that's it looks great.
Yeah.
And Cathedral Square, those folks, and I've interviewed Ms. Reed before.
Yeah.
Pretty nice that they named it for her, but
yeah,
it seems
absolutely,
like
right.
Cathedral Square, I guess, has a great rep.
Yeah.
I haven't checked on the Highgate situation. They're still hoping to pull off Highgate too?
They are. They're looking. Yeah, that's about all I know. That they have some aspirations up there as well. And they do a great job.
No, it sounds like they've got a great reputation.
Yeah.
But the city housing down there, that looks pretty solid. That'll move ahead.
Yeah. We've issued the bonds for the project, and so now we will probably, I think, move ahead with the public portion of it, at least getting the buildings down.
Yeah.
One of the mistakes we made with Fonda was, we're talking about 15 years in time frame. We've been working on Fonda that whole time.
Really?
So
Is that right?
15 years, $5 million, 5 acres.
Wow.
Of
course, you had the remediation you had to do and stuff.
And that's that was the lesson of Fonda, is we waited too long to get it shovel ready.
Oh yeah.
And in hindsight, we should have just done all the remediation. And
really?
Once we did that, the real estate deals began to come together a lot easier.
Wow. Boy, some bad news about that neck of the woods, the Railroad Dispatch Center. They're getting out of here. Is that?
Yeah, I don't know too much about it to speak authoritatively on it.
I guess I'm here in Jacksonville. I've got some folks who are connected with that. But.
Yeah. We're hearing that too. They are, they're in a 15-year lease, so they're a large national and to some extent multinational corporation, and they wax and wane, and they move their labor force around, and so on the positive side, it's a great building, and there's a lot of great employees here. And so, some of them I think might move, but I think, it's another reason why you have to keep investing in growth. Because even something that you think is nailed down, you build them a brand new building, you think they'd stick around for a while.
And the city did just that. That was a city doing that, correct?
Yeah, we moved them out of, we moved them off of Lake and Federal and brokered a deal for them to get a brand new building.
Wow.
Gave them, a great deal on the land. Worked with the developer to drive down the lease rate. And then, in under 5 years, they're making a different decision. But
that hurts.
It's the nature of corporate decision making.
Yeah.
So,
any hope for the old railroad building at Federal and Lake? I mean,
I have a lot of hope.
The building. I mean, the window. Just looking at the windows, but
yeah,
you have some hope that something will happen down there.
Yeah, we don't own it, but we have enough of a relationship with the railroad that we've been able to tour some developers through it, and it's on the list of projects we're looking at. There's a handful of buildings and projects that are only going to be able to get done, I think, with the team that's in place now and with some of the state incentives. So, that's one of the ones, obviously, that's on the list.
Yeah. I guess Jim Cameron, that hasn't caught Jim's fancy, apparently.
It's a tough building to work with because of some of the...
it's really high ceiling. I bet it's a tough building to work with.
Yeah, its strengths are its weaknesses, and you got to buy it right to make the numbers work, the railroad has a lot of metrics that influence what they're willing to sell a building for. And so, I think ultimately it will be redeveloped, and all of this, the public-private partnerships and the amount of investments that we make, it builds on itself and it creates momentum. And when we pull off 90 units of market rate housing at Fonda, then all of a sudden other developers will say, development is about risk and reward. And all of a sudden it's not rocket science. It's really hard to do, but it's not rocket science. And so they'll see, oh, look at that. Maybe I could do something at Bellevue. Or at the city-owned lot next to DFA, or at the railroad building at Lake and Federal. So you have to build momentum. I look back at where things were when we first got started, and we began by redoing the landscaping on Main Street and the streetscaping, and highlighting the economic development potential. And then we started with the St. Albans house, and when I toured people through there, I would say, and we're going to put a hotel across the street. And they were like, when pigs fly.
Out of that. The hotel's done, the downtown hotel's done pretty well.
They're exceeding expectations 100%. Their occupancy is way higher than their model projected.
175 Lake Street, Dominic, it sounds like, it hardly filled up. Is that are they having... Would you say more problems than you thought they would have had with that?
Yeah, I'm not all that close to that deal. It's not a city project. A couple of things. It's so when you talk housing development, you talk about a metric called area median income, AMI, and it's a census figure. Most of our projects now, we're targeting between 80% of average median income and a little over 100, so that's that's prevailing wages in the area, right?
Yeah.
That's that project is targeting 60% AMI, and some a little less, some a little more, but on average it's 60%. So they're targeting people who make a little bit less than the average person.
Including some of the units slated for homeland. I'm not sure how they nailed
Folks
that down,
exiting
but-
homelessness, so so there at every turn, the degree of difficulty in filling that building has gotten harder. If you look at this from like a gymnastics competition, right?
Yeah.
And the degree of difficulty on each jump, the degree of difficulty there is off the charts.
Wow.
People in Franklin County make a lot more money than people think.
Yeah.
And so the biggest problem is people make too much money to qualify.
Okay, to live there,
Yeah.
make too much money.
That's the story I hear. My kid applied and they make too much money, and that's not all bad.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of pressure from advocates to drive down rental rates and to get below 80%, because 80% is still pretty high.
Yeah.
But this has provided a lot of evidence that you get it too low, it's hard to get people to fit in there.
Yeah. What's the rent, out of curiosity? You got some handle on, for, say, a two-bedroom apartment, a decent two-bedroom apartment in St. Albans? Like talking 1,500 to 2,000, somewhere in there, or?
So market right now is about 17
About
for a
17.
two-bedroom.
Yeah.
That's why property values are so high, right? The market rate for a two-bedroom, a nice, two-bedroom is 17.
Wow.
13 or so for, and so, this isn't the Lake Street project. The Lake Street project is going to come in lower than that.
Right.
I'm not close enough to quote the stats,
Yeah.
but the reason that market now is 12
Yeah.
or 13 is that most people can afford that
Yeah.
and are affording that.
Yeah.
And there aren't enough people who are making low enough wages to qualify and are quality tenants. There's, I don't want to, appear on video saying that there isn't a housing crisis and that people at the lower end of the economic spectrum don't need more housing, and they absolutely do.
Yeah.
But they also need a lot of support services that go along with it,
Yeah.
and finding that right tenant, who's a good fit in a building. There's 70 units in there, so
Yeah.
you want to have the right tenant mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as soon as I saw, that project, I'm thinking, good folks at the Beverage Mart and Food City, boy, you guys are gonna, or Maple Fields, and I get into Food City for my Sunday papers at least, and ask them, and they say, no, it's helped us a little bit, but not like we were hoping, and hopefully down the road it'll help more.
At the end of the day, we're in a housing crisis. There's 70 units of housing. It's going to get filled.
Yeah.
The pace of lease up reflects the complexity of the project and the degree of difficulty.
Yeah.
There's a great book, ever brought a lot of folks who think like I do were talking about Ezra Klein's book, Abundance.
Huh.
Phenomenal read.
I've read about that book. I probably should read that.
You
Sounds
should
like a
read that
good
book. Yeah. It's an even easier listen, on Audible or something, right? And but that book talks a lot about the complexity and the difficulty at building the housing that policymakers say that we all want. And Lake Street's a really good example of that.
Interesting. I hear the stat, as I'm sure you do, that the state ideally could use another, 35, 40,000 housing units? Is that a realistic stat? I mean, good luck pulling that off.
Yeah, I go back to where I began. Vermont needs to have a come to Jesus meeting with growth. And until we get comfortable with growth, there's a subtle elitism that permeates all of our development conversations.
And you're not saying, and you're not saying much better news. I mean, a little better, but no drastic change, and that getting better from your eyes.
I'm really optimistic over the new CHIP program. I
Yeah.
think it,
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Thanks.
you know, CHIP allows a community or developer to issue bonds, issue debt for improvements that make a project happen. And
So kind of a cousin to TIF?
yeah, absolutely a cousin, maybe a little brother, right?
Okay.
For all intents and purposes, it is TIF, only it's site-based, not district-based. The power in TIF is it's a district, and we can capture the increment off of one project and use it to support the investment on another. And so the increment provided off of Bellevue, off of Fonda, can help make Bellevue happen and so on. That also creates a lot of complexity, and it creates a scale that small towns get uncomfortable with. The city's issued $30 million in debt in round numbers.
Yeah.
And our annual budget is about a third of that.
Yeah.
And in a lot of small towns, you can stop talking right there.
Wow.
Right? But
Those numbers sound, I assume you're comfortable with those numbers for the city?
100%.
Yeah.
The TIF is a generational opportunity because you get access to the funds that flow from the education side of the fence as well. And, you should arrive at the end of your TIF thoroughly exhausted, having left it all on the field, because you'll never get another chance.
Other states have, I assume Vermont wasn't, other states have TIFs?
Yeah, TIFs are really common nationally. It is the classic economic development tool. There's the way, you think about it, drawing the lens way back, how does the government incent private investment in the areas that it supports?
Yeah.
It's a quid pro quo, it's, if we do this, will you do that? It's providing grants, it's providing infrastructure, it's providing loans. And this allows local governments and state governments to play in that same space, that the federal government did with the Infrastructure Reinvestment Act, right? So CHIP takes all of that and boils it down to a small parcel by parcel scale and says, we want to put 10 units here of housing. And in order to do that, we're going to need to share all the parking, or we're going to need to clean up the brownfield, or we're going to need to make some investments in a wastewater plant. Every project is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And all of those things are deal killers. That's why we don't grow in Vermont. But this CHIP allows the community and the developer to say, all right, we'll take care of the brownfields costs. It doesn't have to, TIF has to be done through the town and through the public entity.
Yeah.
CHIP doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of taking it to the voters because the borrowing costs are about half.
Yeah.
And I find that projects that the whole town appeals
Yeah.
don't get appealed.
Yeah.
The whole town approves, don't get appealed.
Yeah.
We've done.
And you haven't run into any appeals?
Yeah, we've done 5 or 6 large, massive bond votes.
Yeah.
30 million in development.
An easy.
Not one appeal.
Yeah, is that right? An easy approval, I think, on all of them.
Yeah. And the city is acting as the developer there, as the broker. We don't own the buildings, but we're the master developer, right?
Yeah.
And I think that inspires public confidence, so long as the voters trust you and you have that relationship, which is the foundation of it all, right? Then you can do great projects at less cost with greater predictability in a shorter time frame.
Yeah. Easy for me to think of your good friend, I guess, outgoing State Auditor Doug Hoffer. I guess Doug's not running for another. Yes. He hasn't come. He's still as much of a critic on TIF as ever. He's never.
Where you stand depends on where you sit.
Yeah.
And from the auditor's perspective, market rate development should be able to stand on its own.
Right.
And he's looking at it entirely from the perspective of the education fund.
Right.
And doesn't, all of our projects would have happened elsewhere in the state, and the ed fund would be that much richer without having to have the foregone revenue to the St. Albans. That just doesn't track, it reflects a policymaker's view, not somebody with the experience in the field making deals happen.
Yeah, I think the deputy auditor, I think, is Tim Ash.
Yeah.
The former Chittenden. Does he have any different, do you know, does he have a different or better feeling? Because I think he'll be running for that office and might well have a good shot at getting it.
Yeah, I mean, one would assume he would, I'm hoping that that relationship will be a little improved. I know there's probably some things that in hindsight, I might do different.
Yeah. But the TIFs are about there, that's almost at the end for TIF projects in the state, or just St. Albans?
Just St. Albans.
Just St. Albans.
TIF is the most powerful, but it might be too much, for most communities. There's a real, its strength is it's smaller and maybe easier to navigate. It's the CHIP program. Its weakness is it's not going to be as transformative.
Yeah.
St. Albans has developed a model where the city is the developer, and it's got a very entrepreneurial approach to the projects. That's what the auditor hates, because it's more risk.
Yeah.
And you get more bang for your buck that way.
Yeah.
And I think the risks are aligned with the rewards.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll have to see where we go from here. When I talk to gubernatorial candidates and other policymakers, I think the only way to crack this housing nut is to have the state of Vermont lean into these deals in a way like the city of St. Albans has, use their borrowing capacity. The best example of that is the program that came out from the state treasurer's office in partnership with Vermont Housing Finance Agency, the LIAC funds, where the state took a portion of its short-term borrowing in cash and made it available at competitive interest rates to people doing housing projects. And the city picked up $8 million in that effort for Fonda. And even after cleaning the land, making the land available at very low cost, we still couldn't get a deal to happen because of the cost of money. And the deals work at 7%, at 3%, they don't work at 7%. And so the LIAC program from the PCHAC and VHFA launched that project from the drawing board to the permit office. And so that access to capital that the state of Vermont has, that's how we could drive growth in Vermont.
Interesting. Then State Treasurer Mike PCHAC, I think he's doing a decent job.
Doing a great job. We couldn't ask for more.
End.
Yeah, 100%.
The passport agency, I always asked the mayor about that, and he sounded not real encouraged that that's going to hang around forever. Does that any hard news on that? Sounds like the congressional delegation's been helping the city try to keep it. But
yeah, I mean the delegation's been tremendous.
Yeah. Of course, I hear if Senator Leahy was still around, wouldn't be an issue. But anyway,
yeah.
He's not.
I mean, you can say that about a lot of issues. Sure. I will say that Senator Welch's office and Senator Sanders, have been real heroes in that effort.
Right on that issue?
Yeah, it's hard to compete with the legacy of somebody like Senator Leahy,
Sure.
But in terms of getting the right people in the room, a lot of the same senior staff are still involved. I've been really impressed with how hard the delegation's working on it.
Yeah. Well, I think of Peter Welch too, and you tell me, wasn't he? I think when he was still congressman, I think he came up with, he was pretty keen in getting the city some early money for revitalization. I think.
Yeah, he got us started with our first congressional appropriation for Main Street. Came from Peter, and And he's continued to bring home the bacon for the city. The Fonda project's got $2 million in it.
Oh, right.
Same with Bernie. So the city's, we do really well by our delegation.
Yeah.
And if there's any way to keep the Passport Center here, practically speaking, they're going to find a way.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a little more optimistic about it. I think it has more to do with the uncertainty surrounding everything in Washington right now.
Well, I guess that's a good word out of Washington, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Local delegation, reps Luno, Toof, and Dickinson, the St. Albans reps, feel like, they pay some decent attention to you folks?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk to those guys all the time, particularly around some of the public safety issues. They're really engaged.
Yeah.
The city we take a different role, honestly, on some of the public safety issues and the issues with folks that are unhoused and are milling about in need of services. And the city takes a harder line than a lot of communities.
Yeah.
And that's, going back to where we began, that's a big part of why this summer is different than last year as well, is we adopt reasonable rules for our parks and we enforce them.
Encampments, are there any encampments out there? Are they gone at the moment anyway?
Yeah, there's two that we're monitoring.
Really?
And we're always evaluating, does it need to be taken down or does it need to go? I was just down in one last week. And, but, we, unlike some other communities, we shut down encampments.
Yeah.
And, the city takes a perspective of we can be really compassionate for folks that are going through it, trying to find their pathway to recovery. But it's not okay to live in a tent.
Yeah.
It's not okay to steal from others to fuel your habit.
Yeah.
It's not okay to relieve yourself in the park.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the right path for us. We're going to stay on that path, and we'll see how it ends up.
Dominic, I ran into a very old friend, close friend of mine at Kilcare just a couple of days ago, who's lived by near Houghton Park forever, and just mentioned, Richard, you can't believe just stuff that's been going on kind of in my backyard, and he was very happy. I guess the city put some cameras down in that area, and he said the situation's gotten way better, but it sounded like it wasn't fun living there for a while.
Yeah, what we've learned is that any public space that provides shelter, to say nothing of power, and a restroom, but even any space that provides shelter needs to have a security element to it now. And it's not people say, well, can't the cops do more? The cops are emergency response, they're not security. But you take a parking garage, you take Taylor Park, you take Houghton Park. You just can't have open spaces in an urban environment without a security presence. And there's a limit as to how much you can afford and how much you can provide. It was interesting. We had an experiment a couple of weeks ago where we were having a lot of folks congregating in the park that had a really rough element to them, and they were
I've heard some rumblings about that myself.
Folks who were just violating basic standards of decency. From the smoking to the drinking to the language to the behavior. And there's only so far you can go with that. But one of our solutions was to try to bring other folks into the park, sort of a dilution approach, right? And so we brought down some Adirondack chairs from the Greg Brown Lodge and set those up, and tried to provide some amenities that might be more attractive to families, more attractive to people on their lunch break. And that went down in flames. Absolutely, one of the biggest failures of my time here. Because in a matter of days, it became an encampment. They set up shop.
Wow.
Everything that we were hoping to damper down
Went the other way.
just went the absolute other way. And it was really disheartening to think, and maybe there was an opportunity for us to double down on it, but it provide some more, spread the chairs out or something. But it was a real wake-up call of, if you provide anything nice, here's what's going to happen.
Wow.
And, we've had a whole bunch of successes with adding Parks Patrol presence to the parks and infiltrating and bringing in the concert series and all the economic activity.
Yeah.
And it's way better in St. Albans than it is in any other shire town in the state.
Yeah.
When I talk to my colleagues across the state, they I got a question the other day on a thread, what do you guys do about all the needles all over the place? Our needle problem has largely gone away.
Yeah. Not that I'm looking for them, nothing I come across, but I'm not exactly looking. So that's gotten...
Needle problem, is gotten a lot better because they're handed out a lot less. They're handed out one day in one site, and they're handed out with a message of as an exchange and not a supply.
Yeah.
And the sugar shack that's in the park that houses the portalets. That's been a real success.
Yeah.
Who'd have
And to
think
keep that secured, it just wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth just having a portable toilet there.
you can't have a portable toilet. A portable toilet becomes shelter. And
Right. That's tough.
far be it from me to stand in judgment to somebody who is in such dire need that they have to take shelter in a portalet, right?
Yeah.
But there has to be standards of decency here. I think that's, part of what I'm gonna vow it, anti-partisan guy, that nonpartisan guy. But that's part of what the last election was about, is the public saying, this social disorder, it's just too much. And so I think in the city, we're trying to rebalance that.
Yeah. Ran into Mitch Montaigne the other day, who I thought he had closed. He said, I think he was supposed to close the other day. It might have been put off, but again.
On his new building?
On his, the old town hall.
Yeah.
Of course, I said, so you're going to do apartments? And he said, Richard, the issue is septic. Need a sewer line from the city down here.
Yeah.
And I certainly talk to Sean Adkins about that. Do you think that'll happen in the future? Does that sound like
Well, the capacity's
talking
there.
the capacity's here? I guess
And,
that's a key question.
There's plenty of capacity. That's never the issue.
Okay. Well, we're talking some bucks. I'm hearing 6, 7, 8 mil or so. Or you got any rough price tag on running a sewer line in St. Albans Bay?
I wasn't close enough to it to hear the number.
But there's capacity.
Yeah, plenty of capacity. If a developer in the city or in the town, back to that chip example, right? If you're expanding sewer, you need to run the line down, right?
Yeah.
The existing ratepayers don't pay to run the line down. The new person adding on does, right?
Yeah.
So, here that might be the town, we'd be delighted to work with them on that.
Yeah, but that's not, you don't hear a whole lot of talk about that at this point.
I hear, it comes up every 6 months or so. I think the town's working on it, and they're, there's been some studies to get the numbers together.
Yeah.
But, you know, the connection to the plant, that last 10 feet, that's the easy part.
Yeah. You had, a $19 million upgrade of the wastewater plant a few years ago. Is that in pretty good shape at this point? And the state was mandating municipalities with sewer plants to, reduce phosphorus? Did that happen with you folks?
That happened. The 20 million or so, it's been a while now.
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was 10 years ago. It was, it
Not
was
that
early in
long
my
ago.
tenure, That was to address useful life issues and and to make another phosphorus reduction. We cut it in half.
Okay.
The issues now are less around phosphorus and more about solids. And it's gotten much harder to dispose of your solids because of the PFAS debate and where they can go.
Forever chemicals?
Forever chemicals. So, the phosphorus, the solids are becoming a problem, and the strength of the flow coming in, high test flow produces more solids from, some of our different from DFA or Ben & Jerry's and other folks. And so we're having some conversations with those operations about the strength of their flow.
Overflows continue once in a while to be an issue in a heavy rainstorm. I mean, that still happens.
That still happens. The overflows are more a result of our combined system than they are anything at the plant. And
that makes me think of the Houghton Park, the
Houghton
issue
Park
that
project,
voters passed, the underground, big storage tank?
Yeah.
Was that work haven't noticed, that hasn't started, I assume?
It hasn't started yet.
It's, not this year, or?
We might break some ground towards the end of the construction season. But that'll be the biggest dent in our CSO problem. And then, we've got some others coming online, talk about, tenure and things that you want to accomplish, right? And it's been 15. You'd like to think you got another 10 or 15 more with, the council permission. But resolving the CSO and redeveloping those handful of properties that still clearly need that public-private partnership and getting public safety budgets into a place where they're sustainable. That's on the list.
Weldon Theater, I've got a few friends who say, Richard, why is the city, why did they ever deal with the Weldon Theater? I interviewed Kelly Viens a while back. And she said that it's doing okay, but again, I think kudos to you from my point of view. St. Albans has something that downtown Burlington I don't think has right now.
Yeah.
But are you happy? You think the Weldon Theater's worked out pretty well?
It has worked out pretty well. One of the phrases I hear a lot is give us a reason to live here, right? And entertainment is a really important piece of the sense of place. And, a classic small town where surrounded by vibrant neighborhoods, where families can let their kids ride their bikes to the movies. That's my vision for it, right? And the city has a long tradition of using our access to capital to do things that contribute to the quality of life here, but might not make economic sense for a private business to do it.
Which brings to mind another, I hear more people, a few of my friends complaining, Richard, the city has not done too well seemingly with the money it's put into restaurants, and we've talked about that, and we're down to about a minute and a half here.
Oh, well, Matt, you're going to give me a minute.
But again, you're obviously trying to give as much life as you can to downtown, and that maybe hasn't worked out as well as you thought. Adam, will we still see a restaurant across from City Hall?
100%. $100 bet right now that'll be open before school starts, right? If it's not, you can bring me back and we'll do a deal right here.
But again, you obviously think those are initiatives that are worth taking a shot at.
We participate in the market where there's a market failure. We participate more heavily when we get federal money to do so. We had $2 million to help affected industries like restaurants come out of COVID. And that's what we deployed. So, I also say it's, drive down St. Albans Main Street this year around the holidays. And you're going to see Manette will be open. There'll be the Ralston's building on the corner will be open.
The old Nourish
building. There'll be a new restaurant at One Fed. And the Vermont Bakehouse is going to be open on the space on the old donut shop. And all of that, the first business doesn't always make it, but the second business sometimes picks up where the first business failed. And all that took the city's support.
On that note, we're out of time. Thanks to Dominic Cloud, the longtime St. Albans City Manager. Thanks for the time, Dominic.
You're welcome. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks to my producer, Alan Cunningham, the key guy around here, and the rest of the staff here. Thanks for watching us here on Northwest Access TV. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. See you next time.